Snow whirled through the empty train station, the kind of cold that bites straight through your bones. A young black girl rushed home from her night shift when she spotted him. A man in a torn coat, shivering on the bench, eyes hollow but strangely familiar. She almost kept walking until he whispered her name. That night, she didn't just save a stranger. She uncovered a secret that would rewrite both their lives forever. Snow needled sideways through the empty platforms, turning the whole station into a wind tunnel. Lila pulled her thrift store coat tighter and hustled toward the exit, sneakers squeaking on salt. The last train had dumped out a handful of yawning commuters. Now it was just vending machines humming and a janitor whistling off-key. That's when she saw him. A man in a torn wool coat hunched on a bench, hands bare and red, breath stuttering like an old engine. Not the usual kind of homeless, too new, too clean beneath the frost. Dark curls stuck to his forehead, and a signet ring flashed on one finger, heavy in old money. "Sir?" Lila said, hanging back. "You good?" His eyelids fluttered. He looked up at her like he was waking from underwater. Lila. She froze. "How do you know my name?" He nodded toward her chest. Her fast food name tag still hung on the strap of her tote. Lila exhaled, half laughing at herself. "Right. Okay. You scared me." "No. His teeth chattered so hard the word broke. "Cold." "Yeah, no kidding." She shrugged off her scarf and wrapped it around his hands. "We're getting you warm before anything else." "I don't have a wallet." He seemed ashamed of the sentence. "Lucky for you," she said. "I don't charge for basic human kindness." She leaned in. "Can you walk?" He tried to stand. His knees trembled. Lila slid under his arm. He was taller than he looked, slumped there, and surprisingly light, like he'd been running on fumes for days. They made it to the 24-hour coffee kiosk. Lila parked him in a corner booth under a heater that rattled, then bought the largest hot chocolate they had and a styrofoam cup of black coffee for herself. He wrapped his fingers around the paper cup, eyes closing in relief. "Thank you," he said, voice raw. Don't worry about names yet." She pushed a hand warmer across the table. "You got a concussion? You fall." He rubbed the back of his head and winced. "Someone grabbed me. Or I slipped. It's blurry." He looked at her again, properly now, and some cautious light came into his expression. "Why did you stop?" "Because people don't." She shrugged. "And I'm tired of living in a city where we just step over each other." The heater clanked. The clock above the ticket window clicked to 12:41 a.m. He sipped, coughed, then tried again. "I think my name is Eli." "Short for?" she prompted. He searched the ceiling like the answer might be written there. "Elias. I think. Elias Ward." Lila blinked. That name stirred a memory, business blogs chattering, a headline on a bus stop, Ward Industries CEO missing after boardroom chaos. But that guy wore tuxedos and gave TED Talks. This Eli was shivering in a ripped coat. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said. You share a name with someone famous." "That's all." She studied his face. Even under the bruised temple and day-old stubble, there was something magnetic, eyes that tracked the room like he was used to owning it. "Elias, huh? Okay. Eli, you got anywhere safe to go?" He stared into the steam. "If I am who you think, then safe is complicated." "Cool," she said. "I live 5 blocks away. Couch is lumpy, but my radiator has a good heart. We'll sort complicated in the morning." He looked stunned. "You don't know me. I know you're freezing. That's enough." They stepped back into the cold. Snow squeaked underfoot, city lights haloed in the white air. Eli's voice was small when he said, "You're risking a lot." "So are you, apparently." She smirked. "Come on, billionaire. Try not to slip." He laughed, quick and disbelieving, and the sound warmed the night. Lila's walk-up was a tight rectangle of second-hand furniture and plants that refused to die. She handed Eli a blanket heated in the dryer and the largest pair of sweatpants she owned. He emerged from the bathroom 10 minutes later, hair damp, moving easier. "Your place is peaceful." "That's one word." She set a pot of soup on the stove. "Other words include small and noisy neighbors, but we're going with peaceful." As he ate, color returned to his face. He kept glancing at her, curious, almost shy. "Why hot chocolate instead of coffee for me?" "You were shaking," she said. "Sugar hits fast. And you looked like you needed kindness more than caffeine." He set down the spoon. "When did you decide that?" "When you tried to apologize for not having a wallet." She leaned against the counter. "So, tell me your story, Eli. Or as much as you remember." He rolled the ring on his finger. "Board meeting ran long." Security detail never showed for the car. I decided to walk. Then noise behind me. A van door. I think they tried to stuff me in, but I fought and got away. After that, it's flashes. A shoulder hitting concrete. A hand in my pocket. Then the cold and your face. Lila felt the room tilt. So it's true. You're that Elias Ward. I don't want it to be about that, he said quickly. Not with you. With me. He seemed surprised by himself. I mean tonight. I'd like to remember tonight as the night a stranger saw me. Not the headline. She nodded. Deal. They fell into a quiet that wasn't awkward. Outside, tires hissed on wet streets. Inside, the radiator clicked and hummed. Tomorrow, she said at last, you go to the police. Preferably with a lawyer. And you eat more soup. Yes, ma'am. He smiled, and it wasn't corporate. It was human. Morning came bright and bitter. Lila woke to the smell of toast and the muffled sound of a man who didn't know where she kept plates. She found Eli in her kitchenette, hair tamed, a softness in his eyes that hadn't been there last night. I owe you breakfast, he said. And more than that. You owe me a promise you won't disappear, she said. If people grabbed you once. He lifted his coat from the chair, fingers finding a torn seam. He frowned, then carefully pulled at a loose thread. A tiny black drive fell into his palm. What is that? Lila whispered. Insurance. He stared at it like it had teeth. Everything I was going to present to the board, evidence of skimming, shell contracts, who's been bleeding the company. If they wanted me quiet, this is why. Lila's stomach nodded. Then we don't sit on it. We take it somewhere safe. They called her friend Mira, a paralegal with a spine of steel. By noon, Eli sat in a small law office, heat turned high, as Mira made copies and a detective took notes. Lila waited in the hallway, hands jammed into her pockets, heart knocking. Eli emerged an hour later, shoulders lighter, eyes heavier. They're opening a case. They'll assign protection. Good, Lila said. Because if one more suit with a clipboard shows up at my door, I'm charging admission. He laughed again, and then it faded. Lila, can I see you again? Not because I'm a project. Because last night made me feel seen. She felt something unlock in her chest. Okay, but no helicopters on the first date. No helicopters, he promised. Just maybe the train station. Full circle. They met under the same flickering platform lights a week later, now with cops posted discreetly near the entrance. Snow had melted into slick gray, but when Eli arrived with a single daisy in a deli cup, the station felt bright. You brought me a flower in a takeout container, she teased. I'm trying to be the man who fits in your world, he said simply. Also, I liked the daisy. They walked the length of the platform, talking about everything but money, about her community book club and his terrible attempts at cooking, about the aunt who raised her and the teacher who once told him no one would ever love him for his brain. They laughed about the heater in her apartment and the way his phone now buzzed with texts from board members suddenly very interested in his well-being. At the end of the platform, he stopped. I keep replaying that moment, he said. The cold, the fear, and then your voice cutting through it. You good? It was the first kind thing I'd heard all night. Lila swallowed. I don't think I saved you, Eli. I think you saved you. I just showed up. That's what saving looks like, he said. They stood close without collapsing into cliché. The silence between them felt like a promise. The investigation detonated quietly, and then everywhere. 3 executives resigned. 1 was indicted. Eli returned to Ward Industries not with a victory speech, but with a press conference about transparency and raising wages. He named a foundation for survivors of corporate abuse and city homelessness, and the first check went to the shelter 2 blocks from Lila's apartment. Reporters asked about the girl at the station. Eli said, she's not a footnote. She's the first line. When people asked Lila what it felt like to date a billionaire, she said, he's a good man who drinks hot chocolate when he's shaking. The rest is noise. On a spring night that smelled like rain, he led her back to the station. No cameras. No entourage. Just vendors closing up and a bored security guard half watching a game. Full circle, he said, and his hands shook a little, not from cold this time. He pulled the old signet ring free and replaced it with a small band he'd kept tucked in his pocket. Marry me, Lila. Not for the stories. For the mornings. For the soup on bad days and the laughter on good ones. For the way you made the world warm when it was trying to freeze me out. Her yes was not a shout. It was a steady, grateful breath. She slid the ring on, and the station, this ordinary concrete place, became their cathedral. People talk about fairy tales like they're all magic and no work. Lila and Eli wrote a different kind: city buses and grocery lists, accountability meetings and Sunday naps. He kept his promise about no helicopters on Tuesdays. She learned to like boardrooms when they were about raising wages, and together they built a life with no stepovers and no cold benches. When their friends joked about eternal love, Lila would smile and shrug. Eternal didn't mean forever without effort. It meant showing up, even in the wind. It meant hot chocolate first, and then the story. And every winter, on the night the first snow fell, they walked to the station, sat on the same bench, and held hands until their breath made clouds in the air. Two people who had found each other in a city that forgot to look, and who kept choosing to look again and again.